Rob, and welcome to another in my series of videos on how to use GIMP. Now, if you watched the previous video to this one, you'll recall that we simply went through the basics of what layers are and what you can do with them. But in this video we're going to look at more detail at the layers dialog, which you can see on the right here. You'll recall also that we had this image which we were using to demonstrate that you can swap layers around, move one layer in front of another, and so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's look in more detail about these tools that you can use to manipulate the layers in your image. Okay, so let's explore some of the basic features of layers by recreating the image I had a few moments ago. Let's create a new image. 640 by 480 will do. And look, I already have one layer in my image. I've just created a new image. GIMP automatically creates one layer in your image and automatically calls it background. You can rename it to anything you want. At the moment I'm happy with it to be called background because it is actually going to be my background. And down at the bottom of my layers dialog I've got this button here. This is the one I'm going to use first, create new layer. That just popped up off your screen I think, but I'm just drag it in. So GIMP wants to know a few things about my layer. It wants to know what it's going to be called. I'm going to call it square because I'm going to put a square on it. And I'm going to I want the background to be transparent, so I want the rest of the image that I'm not going to, the rest of this layer that I'm not going to draw on to be so I can see through to the background. And that's indicated there. If you look, it's not immediately obvious by looking at the image, but it's more obvious by looking at the layers dialog, because whenever you've got an image that's partially transparent, you'll see this checkerboard effect. When you see that, it means that where the checkerboard is showing, that part of the layer is transparent and you'll be able to see whatever is beneath it. So, selection tool. If you watched a previous video of mine about selection tool, you will know all about that. Let's get a red colour. That's red enough. And so there's my red square. And to create the layer with the circle on it, same process, new layer, drag that in, call this circle, same size as the image, transparent background. Make sure it's selected. What I'll do as well, because it's sometimes really useful to not have the rest of the image on view when you're working on a certain layer, is you can click on the eye there and that will switch off a layer. It will switch off all the layers that you want to switch off. So I'm going to switch off that one. Make sure I'm working on my circle layer. Make a circle, and I think it was green. I'm sorry, that dialog was off screen there. Okay, so that's green. Why don't I switch on this one again? And if I do want the circle behind, I'll move that down using the down arrow. Let's do select none. Let's pick the background layer, and there we are. So let's deal with the remaining buttons down here. These ones we've covered. This is a very useful one. Use it to duplicate an existing layer. If I take the green circle, press the duplicate button, it will make a copy of the circle layer and put it above the existing circle layer. Now this is an example of why it's important for you to be able to interpret the information you see in this layers dialog, because in cases like this it's not immediately obvious by looking at the image what's just happened. But if you look at the layers dialog, you can see that the reason why you can't see two green circles is because one is directly over the top of the other. But just to prove it's there, let's make sure it's selected. Let's go to Layer Move tool and click on the layer and move it out. I'll put it over here, and you can see, there we go, it's now in a different location. If for any reason you want to completely remove a layer from your image, make sure it's selected and press the little dustbin, recycle bin icon just there, and it's gone. If you want to have a view of the image with just one layer visible, just a particular layer, instead of going through and switching off all the ones that you don't want to see, if you hold down Shift and click the one that you do want to see, then it will switch all the others off. And now I can just see the green circle only. If I hold down Shift, holding down Shift now, click on that again, brings them all back on, and that works for any layer that you're working with, or you can switch them on individually. The opacity slider, located here, controls how much of the background shows through the layer for which you're changing the opacity of. So in the case of the green circle here, most of this layer is transparent, so the white background shows through, but the green circle itself is fully opaque, so the background doesn't show through at all. But if I move the opacity of this down to say 28, 26, you can see that now the white background is beginning to show through. It's still a green circle, but it's mixed in with a good deal of white from the background. There's a checkbox here called Lock, and it's not immediately obvious what it does, but this is what it does. If I just hide all the other layers, just keep the green circle. I'm going to move the opacity back up to 100%. Without any lock on the alpha channel, I can draw on any area of the image. If I take my paintbrush tool, I've got green selected. So maybe you want to make it so that that area cannot be drawn on. And the reason you might want to do that is because you might want to, if I select a different colour here, it's because you might want to do something with this circle, but you don't want it to go over the edge. As you can see, I'm going over the edge. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z on that to undo those. Now I'll lock the alpha channel. I'll take my brush again, and now this time I can do what I want to do. It doesn't matter if I go over the edge because the alpha channel is locked, so it won't update the transparent part of the image. Okay. There is a drop-down list here called the mode list, which I'm going to cover in another video because it's a rather large subject, and it's going to probably need a video all to itself. As you can see here, it's changing the different modes, render modes for different layers. Can get you some interesting effects, but you have to know what each mode does in order to be able to predict what it's going to do and to be able to use it properly. So we'll cover that another time. Other than that, that wraps it up for layers, the basics of layers. Thanks for watching. Join me again.